Islam and women's rights are not compatible on a societal level. I went to a Muslim private school for 9 years. I wore a hijab. I also lived in the Middle East. My grandfather literally built a mosque back home in the city where I'm from that was named after my uncle who passed away. So I'm not saying this as an outsider. I'm speaking from lived experience. Women should be allowed to practice Islam if that's what they choose. But the moment that Islam becomes the governing framework of society, women's equality collapses. Because women who don't want to live under Sharia law or practice Islam will lose their freedom. And this isn't about culture, it's structural. Islam has been interpreted, enforced, and preserved for centuries, almost entirely by men. When men control religious authority, law, and morality, women's autonomy becomes conditional. And that is not women's equality. People say that Islam needs reform. But real reform wouldn't be cosmetic. It would require dismantling male religious authority and placing interpretive power in the hands of women. And that wouldn't be a tweak. That would be a full-on revolution. And the truth is, patriarchy has been extremely effective in Islam. Women are conditioned to police one another instead of unifying against the system that is clearly oppressing them. Compliance is rewarded and resistance leads to punishment. I mean, I hope that changes. I genuinely do. But women's equality is about having a choice. And if you look at countries like Afghanistan, where it's gotten to the point where women are only allowed to see with one eye, you can clearly see that in most cases, women do not have a choice when they live in a society that is governed under Sharia law. You can argue with me about it all you want. The facts are there. And even in the countries where Sharia law isn't as enforced, it's very frowned upon when women don't wear a hijab by their communities. Don't even try to argue with me about this. I lived in the Middle East. Okay, I lived in Lebanon. And out of all the countries in the Middle East, Lebanon is the most westernized. Okay, and in certain parts of it over there, it's very, very frowned upon for you not to be wearing a hijab. But any system that only works if women comply is not liberation. Women's equality is about having a choice. The women in Iran right now do not have a choice. They're literally risking their lives for basic freedoms. A bird in a park in Iran has more rights than a woman does because a bird can sing out loud and a woman can't. That is not women's equality, and that is not women's liberation. So for those of you who are not Muslim that are preaching Sharia law in the West,